Okay, I'm going to try one more time. Good evening. All right. I'd like to call this Planning Commission meeting of August 27th to order. Madam Secretary, will you take roll?
Commissioner Reyna?
Present.
Commissioner Verino?
Here.
Commissioner Alderetti?
Here.
Vice Chair Contreras-Leo? Here. Chair McLaughlin?
Here.
Commissioner Mendoza?
Here.
Commissioner Nguyen?
Here.
Chair, you have quorum.
Would everybody stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, before we get started, I'm going to do some housekeeping and talk about some of the things that we're going to be doing this evening and how we're going to handle the decorum of the meeting. Tonight there will be a work study session on 2525 North Main Street project and a public hearing to receive and file public comments for the draft Environmental Impact Report number 2018-01 for the project at 2525 North Main Street. The Planning Commission Chair, which is I, may enforce the rules to ensure a fair and efficient meeting, which may include reducing the amount of testimony time allowed by the applicant and all those who wish to speak when the meeting agenda is lengthy or when there are numerous speakers for any of the selected specific items. I encourage those who are part of groups or organizations to appoint a representative to speak on behalf of the organization or group. If you would like to make public comment, please fill out the request form. The green form is for the EIR, and the yellow form is for the work study session. So if you've got the cards in there and you know what you want to do and you might not have the right card, you can come up here and grab a card. You will also know on the card you have a number, and what we're going to do is we're going to call out by numbers. So we'll bring 3 to 5 people up at one time, and then each person will speak. While at the podium, the speakers are requested to state their names for the record, and we do have a court stenographer who is taking record of everything this evening. And give your testimony. You'll be limited to 2 minutes. You'll have 1 minute, and then the yellow light will come on, and then the red light will come on in the second minute. The audience is requested to respect and extend courtesy to all those wishing to comment on all the matters by being quiet, while others are speaking. Unruly behavior such as clapping, shouting, or other such demonstrations are counterproductive and are prohibited. Also, I'd like to make sure that everybody has their cell phones off at this time. So if you haven't turned your cell phone off, please do so. Moving to our first agenda item, public comments. Does any member want to make a public comment on a non-agenda item for this evening? Okay.
I'd like to speak on behalf of the owners.
I'm sorry, I need your name.
Oh, Barry Ink. Barry Ink.
Okay.
I'd like to speak on behalf of the owners for the business park, Civic Center Business Park, located at the corner of 5th and Fairview. There's a project that's proposed coming up that's regarding Vista Heritage Charter School expansion. And we have many concerns regarding that expansion and the amount of parking and requirements that are going to be required and the safety for the children and so on. So we have a prepared form that we'd like to give to all of you for, to read over for our concerns.
Okay.
Leave with you. Is that fine?
Fine. Okay.
Are you our clerk?
You want to speak on anything?
Nope. I think that's it. I think as long as you read it before you make your decision, it's important this community is represented fully. It's an HOA, so it's an association that is in jeopardy of their existence. So,
Thank you. Are there any other public comments on non-agenda items at this point in time? Hearing none, we'll close the public comments at this time. Consent calendar. I'd like to have a motion on the minutes from the meeting of August 13th. Do we have a motion? So moved. Second? All those in favor? Aye. 7-0. What we're going to do this evening is we're going to take the work study session first. So we're taking that out of order, and at this point in time, we do not need to have a vote on that. So we will start with the work study session, and staff, Selena, Vince, will you make your presentation?
Vince Fregoso, City of Santa Ana Planning, and Selena Kelleher. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Planning Commissioners, and members of the public. We're here this evening to talk a little bit about the 2525 North Main Street project that is proposed at the northeast corner of Main Street and Edgewood Avenue. I'm going to give you a brief overview of the project, turn it over to Selena, where she'll give you a little more project details, then I'll come back at the end and wrap it up for the project, for this work study session portion. So I think most of you have heard of the project. I know people in the audience have. It's a proposal to demolish an existing two-story office building that has been vacant for about almost a couple of years now. The proposal that will be before you here shortly is to develop a multifamily apartment project on about a 6-acre site. A little more specifically, we're looking at almost 500 units in a 5-story layout. Looking at over 900 parking spaces with 9 levels, 1 subterranean, and 8 levels above ground. And then the units will be itself from studios to 3-bedroom units, and they'll be around 500 square feet up to, I think, almost 1,400 square feet in size. And they'll have the whole gamut of amenities that you've seen in most of the projects that come before you lately. So you're going to have club rooms, fitness centers, roof deck, pools and spas, and dog parks, and those kind of upscale amenities that we now see in these traditional multifamily projects. What you'll be seeing in the next few months, and it's covered in your EIR, the document that you have before you, that was emailed to you a couple of weeks ago, plus you have a hard copy as well. There'll be several entitlements that will be coming before you. Those include the environmental impact report, which will receive in public comments in the next session here this evening. The proposal requires a general plan amendment. The property is currently zoned office, has a zoning and general plan designation of office, so we'll need to get a general plan amendment, or GPA, to change the designation. We also have an amendment application, which is a zone change, to change the zoning to allow residential. And then there'll also be a development agreement, which is a contract between the developer and the city staff on the project itself. So those items will be coming before you in the next couple of months. Again, here's just an overview, a little vicinity map. I think most of everybody knows where this location is at. Again, northeast corner of Main and Edgewood. Just to the north, there's a couple of taller buildings. There's a 10-story Lincoln Tower building to the north. And then you have the Main Place Mall a bit north and west of the project site, as well as the City Place project to the north as well. And then surrounding the project site, you have the Park Santiago residential neighborhood there. And you see the fire freeway that cuts there to the south and west. And then here's a few photos that were recently taken here of the project site. Again, it's a 2-story building, former office use. You see the landscaping, mature landscaping still in place right there. The site's being used right now by Discovery Science Center for their parking uses for their project site. So there is some use of the property right now. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Selena. She'll walk you through a little more of the details of the project.
Good evening, Chairman McLaughlin and members of the Planning Commission. As you know, the general plan is a long-range policy document which contains 16 elements. One of those is the land use element, and the application is proposing to amend the land use plan map. As Vince mentioned, it's currently zoned professional and administrative office, and it's proposed to be changed to district center, which would allow a maximum of 90 dwelling units per acre. On the left of the screen, you can see a section of the general plan land use map and nearby land use designations, and the subject site is highlighted in blue. Also proposed is an amendment application. As the technical term is referred to as a zone change. Again, the property is zoned professional and administrative office and is proposed to be specific development, which would have project-specific development standards, which would include setbacks, building heights, parking, and I'll get into those details momentarily. Just to walk us through the site plan here, the main entry is highlighted in blue, which would be off of Main Street between Edgewood Road and Walkie Way. It's a wrapped residential project with a courtyard design, which would allow for open space at the ground level. There's a 40-foot setback on the east side of the site, which would be used, which would also contain a fire lane, which would be used for emergency access. The setback on Edgewood Road is 15 feet, and the setback on Main Street is 12.5 feet. The setback near the park is 7 feet. The residential buildings are 5 stories in height and will wrap around a centrally located parking structure, which will have an amenity deck on the 8th level. I'll get into the building heights in specific. The residential units are approximately 65 feet in height. On the east side of the project site, you can see a close-up here of that section of the site plan where it tiers from 2 to 3 to 4, then to 5 stories. 2 stories being approximately 20 feet, the 3rd story being 30 feet, 4th story 40 feet, and so on. The parking and amenity deck is located closer to Main Street and would contain 8 levels of above-grade parking, and it would be approximately 90 feet in height. On that 8th level, there would be an amenity deck with the pool, spa, club room, etc. The applicant is currently exploring proposing a secondary access via walkie-way. This would allow for full turn movements in and out of the project site. It would require working with the Parks and Recreation Department for this access, which is currently in progress. Any land that is going to be used for this alternative access space for the park would then be converted on-site. So it would be equal amounts for the conversion, and that area would have to be dedicated for public park use to the city. Here you can see the breakdown of the unit mix. It ranges from studios to 3 bedrooms. It's primarily studios and 1 bedrooms, as you can see, for a total of 496 units and 84 dwelling units per acre. The units range in size from approximately 500 square feet to 1,500 square feet. The proposed parking for the project would be 1 parking space for studios and 1 bedrooms, 2 parking spaces for 2 bedrooms, 3 parking spaces for 3 bedrooms. Additional guest parking and an additional 180 stalls would be allocated to residents through a parking management plan. This would bring the total parking spaces on site to 904 spaces, which is 1.82 parking spaces per unit. In addition, highlighting that there are tandem stalls on site, which would be approximately 18% of the total parking. There are approximately 1 acre of common open space amenities on the project site. This would be at the ground level, at the pool decks, and at a outdoor common open eating areas. So there's a pool, spa, outdoor dining, a wellness room, club room, meeting rooms, bike lockers, Amazon lockers, typical of multifamily developments. In addition, each unit would have approximately 50 to 75 square feet each of private balcony or patio space. Here are some renderings of the project, which gives you a better visual of what you would see from Main and Edgewood Road. Here you can see the various building materials that are proposed, a variety of stone and brick veneer, metal panels, and ceramic wood tiles. The view here from Edgewood Road. You can see the earth tones are proposed. And another view from Edgewood, which shows the tiering of the 2-story to 5 stories. Sorry.
Vince Fregoso. Okay, so I'm going to wrap it up here with this slide here. It's called areas of consideration. So things we've been studying. We've had this project for several months now before us. There's still a few more things that we're analyzing and studying to see how it all fits into the project there. So as Selena mentioned earlier, the general plan amendment and zone change are required, and what we're really looking at is that neighborhood compatibility, how this project really gels in with the neighborhood that surrounds it. We're taking a look at the unit mix, the small units to bigger units, and see how those relate. The parking ratio is still under consideration here, studying if that 1.82 is a accurate number for the project. Vehicular access, the park access more specifically, building height of the building and how it relates to the surrounding land uses, and then the overall density. So those are items that we'll be studying, and those will become before you here in the next couple of months that you'll have to use as part of your consideration for the project. And with that, our presentation is done. Mr. Chairman, I believe that the applicant would like to give a PowerPoint as well. We can answer any questions you have right now if you'd like, and then we can,
Does the commission have any questions of staff at this time?
I do, Mr. Chairman.
Ken DeWitt?
Is there any height limitation in the area? And I have two questions. And question number two, what's the tallest building in the area?
The question was in regards to what is the height limits for the property. As currently proposed, it's professional administrative office, which would allow for a maximum of 35 feet in height. That's if the site were to be developed with an office building. In regards to heights of nearby structures, we could include that as part of the information for the future public hearings, but I do have some of that information available tonight. The office building to the north of the site is 10 stories in height and has a 5-level parking structure, and that's the one at the corner of Main and Memory Lane, and the Discovery Cube, which is to the west of the site, is approximately 100 feet in height.
Thank you.
And then the single family nearby is a maximum of 27 feet in height.
Eric Alderete?
Great. Thank you, Commissioner McLaughlin. One question I had was about the setback on Spurgeon. What is that currently at now? I think you said 40 is, or am I, maybe that's for the proposed project.
The existing building setbacks?
Yes, on the Spurgeon, so I guess that would be east.
Edgewood?
Spurgeon is east, I think.
Right.
I'm not good with.
It's 90 feet from the single family to the building setback on site, on the east side of the property.
So then that would come up to 40 under the new project.
Correct.
Okay, and how does the parking compare to the other projects that we've approved recently? Since I think there's going to be 18% tandem, and the reason why I raise this is I'm just wondering if there's enough so that people would flow into the neighborhood.
That is one of the areas that we'll provide more information on in the staff report as well, because there have been various parking rates and calculations used throughout our multifamily developments. That also does take into consideration where those projects are located and other things, parking studies. And our standard multifamily parking rate is about two parking spaces per unit and a quarter space per guest for guest spaces.
Got it. And then the last question I have is on the 8 levels of parking. So it's a 5-story project, 8 levels of parking. So I assume some of that parking is subterranean?
Correct, 1 level.
Okay, and then it's narrower so that it gets up to the same level as the 5, or does it extend above?
It's going to extend above the residential approximately 20 feet.
Okay.
25 feet, sorry.
Got it. Thank you for that.
Beatrice Mendoza?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. You mentioned that the applicant is thinking of closing off Walkie Ray, is that right? The street?
They're proposing to actually utilize Walkie Way.
Oh.
Right now it's a 3-way signal, and this would allow for a 4th access point on site.
Okay, will we have any reports on that prior to the voting of the project?
Yes, and that is analyzed as one of the access alternatives within the EIR.
Okay, thank you.
Any other?
One
Eric
additional
Alderete.
question. Thank you, Chairman. The cube is across the street from the project. Do we know what the height of the cube is?
It's
Is it 100 feet?
100
That's
feet.
it.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. That's it.
No other questions of Cynthia Contreras-Leo?
So with the parking structure going above the 5th, the scaled height, what does it make it at that point? What's the height of it
90 feet.
total?
Correct, from as measured from ground to the top of structure. So here I have a cross section that may be a little bit hard to see on the screen, but would also help visualize where those cuts are, and those are also included in the hard copies that are at your seats at the dais.
So the tallest peak of the project would be 19 feet.
90.
90.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Any other questions of staff from the commission? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Would the applicant at this time like to speak on the project?
Good evening, Ryan Ogolnik and Jeremy Ogolnik with the applicant. Going to give a very short presentation on some of the attributes, city benefits, and amenities of the project, and along the way, we'll respond to what we believe the community's concerns are. Firstly, the project originally had the name Magnolia. We recently renamed it the Addington. Charles Addington had worked on the project from the inception. A young man passed away on July 4th. He leaves behind 2 of his children. Charles was a humble, caring man, influenced the people around him. He was highly respected by his peers and city staff. Charles will be greatly missed. As a tribute to him and his legacy and his family, we made the decision to rename the project after him. The image in front of you is on the corner of Main and Edgewood. The cube would be across the street to the left. We designed the project keeping in mind of the cube, a more modern look, at the same time respecting the neighborhood with more traditional looks, so we sort of settled in the middle for a more contemporary look. Next slide. Next. Front image of the building facing towards the south, towards the 5 freeway. Image of the property facing from the front as if you're standing at the cube's entrance. Site plan. I do have a pointer. Let's see if it works. The bottom here, of course, is Main Street. The right margin is Edgewood, and the left margin is the park. This is an image of the project as we move down Edgewood. We purposely went to a more simple and traditional style. We've incorporated high-end materials such as stone and brick. And on the right hand of the slide, I'll cover extensively our decision to set back the property and terrace the property on the eastern edge. Here's an image of the east or rear of the property showing the 2 levels. Obviously nobody in this room could read that, but it's an extensive list of amenities for the project. We believe it's more amenities than any project has seen in Orange County, and we'll quickly go over some of the highlights. The arrows pointing to the front, it's the lobby. Next image. This is the concierge desk. Takes care of the needs of the community and its residents. Effectively, it's a personal assistant for the residents. Also adjacent to Main Street is a business center. It incorporates a conference room and a presentation room. All of these amenities are free of charge for the residents. Now, what we're looking at now is the 18 square foot amenity deck, which is this area. The pointer doesn't show up. And contained in there is the pub. Next slide. Located at the rear of the property is a chef kitchen and wine locker. Residents can store their wines and have private dinner parties. Up on the amenity deck is a club room. You can watch a sporting event, play pool. In the rear of the property is a screening room. Also at the rear of the property is alfresco dining and a community room. Located at the amenity deck is an outdoor kitchen and lounge, space for residents to socialize and be with friends and family. Also, on both pools are poolside cabanas that feature televisions and refrigerators. Throughout the community are fireplaces and fire pits. This is an image of the ground floor pool. We finished this pool in Aliso Viejo. It's an image at night in northern Orange County. At the top is a rooftop pool. It's oriented towards Anaheim. Everything on the rooftop pool is oriented towards Anaheim. Residents can enjoy fireworks. This is an image of a pool we recently finished in Hollywood. On the eastern edge of the property is a wellness pavilion, a one-story building. Contains a yoga studio, a stretch studio, and several massage rooms. At the amenity deck is a 6,000 square foot fitness center with full free weights and cardio equipment. There's many courtyards throughout the project. Here's an image of the hardscape and landscape. By the way, a lot of this is very difficult for the audience to see. Jeremy and I are available for a meeting to go over the presentation. The project is the second LEED certified project in Santa Ana. The project will contain 25 electric car stations, bike sharing, other energy components, creating a very small carbon footprint. Here's some images of the resident interiors. They'll feature hardwood floors and solid surface countertops. One of the unique features of the property is 2 or 3 of the units will be furnished, leased at a nightly rate. These units will be available to both the residents and to Park Santiago. We anticipate the rents to be sub $100 a night. Now, community benefits. So we've listened to the community, and we decided to address what we think are the more compelling things, or things that are of issue in the community. Since the riverbed has been cleared, there's been an uptick in crime, including to our property. So we'll provide security not just for our community, the Addington, but the park. For the residents of Park Santiago residents will have the number of the patrol company. They'll be able to call the patrol company when there's a disturbance, a noise. They're at the beck and call of Park Santiago, no different than the Addington. The middle image is of the stone pillar on Edgewood. We're offering to redo those pillars with, of course, the input from the residents. The image on the right is of an Amazon locker screen. As you enter Edgewood, there'll be 7 parking spaces dedicated just to Park Santiago. The residents of Park Santiago will be able to park at that location and access the room. Here's an image of the room. This was another community we did. The room is open 24 hours. Instead of leaving the packages at the doorstep and potentially worry about theft, residents of Park Santiago can have their packages delivered to this room. When the package is delivered, they'll get a text or an email with a code. They go to the keypad and the locker door opens up. Effectively, when people leave packages at their front door, it indicates to vagrants nobody's home and break-in. You're susceptible to break-ins. These are fobs, and we're discussing with the community to open up access to our amenities. And at this time, we're waiting to meet with the community leaders, and we keep open the option of sharing the amenities with the community and creating a sense of community. So concerns. It's a list of, for those who can't read it from the back of the room, it's 5 concerns that we've heard from the community: historic preservation and aesthetics, neighborhood privacy, parking, traffic, context, and scale. We understand these concerns. We're trying to be a better neighbor. We've been made aware of these concerns through your letters to electeds. We've made significant revisions to the community with the goal of addressing all, if not all of them. While we may not be in full agreement among all here tonight, we at least want the community group to understand we're listening, reacting, and we're doing the best we can. So, nobody can read that. I can barely read that slide. But what that slide says in the top left corner, the new building will not enhance our neighborhood. Well, from our perspective, in the box to the right, the current building is from the 1980s. It's certainly not a historic building, and the image to the right is showing that 75% of the current building is a parking lot. The box below says the building will ruin the character of our neighborhood. Our response is the Addington, in its latest iteration, is designed to function as a Main Street community and not impact Park Santiago the best that is possible. What we mean by function as a Main Street community is we have moved access points, we have reworked massing to attempt to be a good neighbor to the community, and the existing building, of course, is antiquated and obsolete and doesn't function. So, when we first presented the project, we presented a 5-story building on the eastern edge. We've made significant modifications to the eastern edge. The image, as you look to the right, has a 42-foot setback, starts at 2 stories, goes in 25 feet, goes to 3, goes in about 20, goes to 4, and goes in about 20. This is an image that the blue at the top shows our previous submission, a 42-foot step-back starting at 3 stories. The image on the bottom, same 42-foot step-back, but starting at 2 stories, and as I said before, going in 25 feet. Next image. As you can see, the area in the blue is the area that we removed from the back of the building for privacy and concerns brought up by the neighborhood. What we're looking at here, and it's difficult to see, but this is the 42-foot setback. It shows that instead of creating a continuous facade on the eastern edge, we purposely created these series of courtyards where 40% of the building is set at 42 feet and 2 stories, but 60% of the building is set at 120 feet. In addition to that, we purposely oriented all windows inward, not towards the back or the eastern edge, but inward for privacy. We're retaining the 30 and 40-foot trees and the 6-foot block wall. We've done extensive shade studies to ensure on the right margin are the 11 homes on Spurgeon to ensure that these homes were not impacted by shadows. There's no shadows on these homes at any season of the year. This image here can't be read, but effectively it says what staff said, 1.82 parking spaces per unit. We have a much higher proximity of ones and studios, roughly 68%. The green slides at the bottom show what is being used currently at the Mark. The Mark is currently using 1.28 spaces per unit. Again, we're proposing 1.82. It's inverse. And then at 1901 over on First Street, they're using 0.71 parking spaces. Again, we're providing 1.82. I'll have to read this slide because nobody can read it. The retail center. So these are, on the left column, are concerns that were brought up by the neighborhood, specifically asking what would be the least amount of traffic, which use would be the least amount of traffic. So the first one that was suggested to us, a retail center. A retail center would produce about 6,500 daily trips, or 2.4 times the amount of traffic of the Addington. Then we were asked about building the per code, the commercial use or the general plan designation of POA allows a 1.5 FAR. Essentially, that's the square feet of the site multiplied by 1.5. That would produce over 1,000 more daily trips, or 40% more traffic than the use we're proposing. Then the idea of leave it alone. If we left it alone and the building, the 80,000 square feet office building, was re-tenanted, the building would produce 240 trips more than our proposed use. Then there was a discussion about cut-throughs. How do we stop cut-throughs? We think we have a couple solutions. First of all, if it's a retail center or a commercial center, you'll have what the current access is. One access point on Edgewood, one on Main. We're removing the access point on Edgewood. If you look at the traffic numbers, 58% of the current traffic is on Edgewood. So we're taking 58% of what's on Edgewood and moving it to Main Street. In addition, we've been in discussions with Waze. Waze has an algorithm, and if you don't interfere with the algorithm, they'll divert traffic through the community. With the right amount of community resistance, they will shift their algorithm. One last thing before you switch it. In addition to that, our lease will make it a violation of the lease. It will be a covenant of the lease that egress to or from the project cannot go through Park Santiago. It can only go through. It can only go through Main Street.
Please have the courtesy to let him talk.
While I understand that needs to be policed, there are a lot of law-abiding citizens and renters who will adhere to the lease. We hope it's a deterrent. Next slide. So as you can see here, the two arrows point to the proposed access point. The red strikeout says no egress on Main, and as I said before, this will cut out 58% of the trips off of Main and bring everything to Main Street. Our hopes is that this will act like a Main Street project by doing all the various changes I've suggested. Now, quickly going through the charts. The charts are hard to read, but this is comparing the existing use of an office building with the 80,000 that's there today, comparing to the Addington. It produces 240 less trips than re-tenanting the existing building. Next slide. Then if we go to what's allowed under the code, I mentioned this, you can build approximately 390,000 square feet. This would produce 1,000 more trips per day, or roughly a third more traffic. Then we've heard from several people about retail. We think on Main Street there's excessive retail. We think this project works perfectly in tandem with the existing retail. And most importantly, traffic's always the thing people are concerned with. If you build an 80,000 square foot retail center on the 5.9 acres, it produces 6,400 trips, or 3,700 more trips than the proposed Addington project. This is a chart of the findings of the EIR. I know many of you have read it. Effectively, with the exception of one of 12 or 13 items, all findings are less than significant or have no impact. The only impact found was aesthetics related to a change from what's there today to what we're proposing. Not saying it's worse, just simply saying it's a change. One of the other concerns we hear that the project is out of scale with its surroundings. As we show at staff shown in some other slides, the project is less intense and tall than the neighboring properties on Main Street, and we have also significantly scaled down the eastern section by terracing the building. Here's an image superimposing the property onto Main Street, and as you can see on the right margin, the office building is significantly taller, across the street significantly taller, and the cube is significantly taller. Some other context images on the bottom right is the parking lot and the existing building, just showing that there's taller buildings on Main Street. Just go through these. They're all about the same. This image is of the corner of Spurgeon and Virginia. On the top right-hand side is showing the existing 10 or 12-story office building. It's been there for more than 30 years. The community has remained magnificent and has thrived, and property values have more than tripled during the time period that this building has been constructed. Traffic's always a huge issue in Southern California, including Santa Ana. If you move multifamily housing, any housing, close to work, it reduces traffic. If you move it close to shopping centers, it reduces traffic. If you move it close to public transportation, it reduces traffic. Reducing traffic is environmentally responsible, and of course it's less strain on the city. The city will pay, the project will pay to the city about $13 million. The most important dollars are dollars that go direct to the city's general fund. Of the $13 million, 5.1 goes directly to the city's general fund. This slide compares what our project pays in comparison to Park Santiago. The current 1,175 homes in Park Santiago pay $5.4 million annually. Of that, $998,000 goes to the city's general fund. The new development will pay $3.5 million, and approximately $700,000 will go to the city's general fund. So said differently, the new property on 5 acres will pay the equivalent of 69%, or 1,100 homes. Now, the current building, as currently paying taxes, pays 6.1. The share of the city is 1.1. This is over 25 years. But as designed, it will increase to 89 million, 17 million over 25 years going to the city, an increase of 1,600% to the city. In addition to property tax, the city collects property tax in lieu, utility user tax, residential derived tax, business tax, and construction sales tax. The current property has a value of $17 million. 87 of that, $87,000 a year is paid in tax. The new project will be valued at $260 million. 1.2 million of that will go to the city's general fund. We'll see an increase on an annual basis after cost of services, things like repairing roads and police, an increase of $1.1 million. Major developments attract businesses and revitalize communities. Employers are following the employees. Currently in Santa Ana, only about 20% of the people that work in Santa Ana live in Santa Ana. That means 80% of the community is commuting to their jobs in Santa Ana. We have a housing crisis. Next slide. We'll provide either 77 affordable units or $6.5 million in housing opportunity ordinance funds. This slide shows housing ratios. In Orange County, a typical housing ratio is for every 2 people, there's 1 housing unit, or for every 3 people, there's 1 housing unit. In Santa Ana, there's a severe housing crisis, and for every 4.5 people, there's 1 housing unit. Keep in mind, Santa Ana did not build housing for nearly 30 years. The quality that was built was poor. Cities typically Santa Ana is among the worst ratio, and it's considered a job-rich and housing-poor city by SCAG, the Southern California Association of Government. And importantly, this area of Santa Ana is among the least dense of Santa Ana, with 4 to 5,000 folks per acre, where much of the city, especially the central part, is 16 to 17,000 per acre. Housing should not go everywhere, but it should go in the right location, and Main Street being a job-rich area is the right location. Skip this slide. In 2000, Santa Ana had 34% of the adjacent market share, meaning cities of Costa Mesa, Newport, Santa Ana, Tustin. By 2013, it was down to 27%. Santa Ana, over that period, built virtually no housing. The current vacancy in the area is 2.3%. It virtually cannot be any lower. Santa Ana has a severe structural deficit in their budget. This year, it will be $17 million. By 2019, it will be $34 million. As we discussed before, the project will provide $1.2 million in additional net revenue after the cost of services. We've met extensively with the Cube, explained the project. The Cube board asked us a lot of difficult questions. The Cube's board is among the most influential people in Orange County. They've assessed what's in the best interest of the community and have written a letter of support. Santa Ana Unified School District is in complete support for the project. The district is concerned with under-enrollment and an extreme need for additional development fees. There's a group in Orange County called People for Housing. They write, "We know that the only solution to the housing shortage is to build more homes, which is why we are excited to support the housing development proposed for 2525. This is an interesting letter because perhaps the person most impacted by this project is on Edgewood. When you turn into Edgewood, the house immediately on the right is owned by a gentleman named Jason. Jason's a lifelong resident of Santa Ana. He employs hundreds of people. He writes, "The purpose of this letter is to express my support of the proposed project on 2525 North Main. I'm a firm believer that with growth in our community comes many benefits to our neighborhood, surrounding neighborhoods in the city. I also think of all the businesses on Main Street that will benefit greatly with an increase of revenue from the locals living there." Also in the neighborhood, a couple streets from the project, we support 2525 because of the quality and positive kind we need to grow well. To stay competitive and financially secure, our city must continue to grow to meet the demands of growing population and demanding business needs. Also a business owner in Santa Ana is Pete. He lives 5-6 blocks from the site. I'll just read the section in red. In addition, there's a misconception that the community group would like to perpetuate that the majority of Park Santiago opposes the project. That is not the case. I can state with certainty that it is the minority that opposes the project. Just reading the letter, guys. Diane, who lives adjacent to the community, Diane writes, "This is the kind of development in which my wife and I, two young professionals with master's degrees and steady employment, or our friends could live. This type of resident that these apartments would attract will be an asset to the community. They would send their kids to local schools. They would patronize..." They would patronize local businesses, and they would support the maintenance of Park Santiago as the great community that it is. A local broker did an analysis how this project would impact home values. I won't read it to you, but his determination was it would increase home values. I'll leave you with this. We've been developing in Santa Ana for over a decade. We've thoroughly enjoyed working with staff in the community. I'm confident the Addington can and will be a great neighbor and bring benefits to both the community and the city. I'm available for any questions the Commission may have.
Thank you. Does the Commission have any questions of the developer at this time? Patrice Mendoza.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Some of the amenities that you mentioned, like the Amazon lockers and things like that, have you tried that at other locations?
Yes. Once for another community, but all of our apartment residents enjoy that feature. Because even in an apartment community, leaving packages outside the door can be stolen.
Thank you.
Eric Alderete.
Thank you. If you could, in this picture actually, can you tell us where the parking is? Would you be able to point that out?
I think it would be better just to flip to this slide that's off of, that shows the arrows.
Yeah, I just want to, because I didn't notice it before, the structure, so I'm trying to.
Keep going. Go to the site plan. I don't know if this will work. Sort of works. Commissioner Alderete right here.
Right.
And then right here.
Okay.
Currently, where the arrow is where there's egress for the commercial site.
Okay, so that's that area where the arrow is. That would be Spurgeon back on.
Spurgeon.
Yeah.
We've removed that, and we have it on Main Street.
Got it. Okay, thank you very much. The other question I had was, so I noticed that you put up some parking statistics for the Mark, which I think was 1.28, and then a couple of other ones. So why are you parking it at 1.82? That seems high.
I think it's excessive. We'd like to park it less. Staff had indicated where they're comfortable.
Okay, all right. Thank you for that.
Okay. Any other? Lynette Verino?
Was there any plan then to utilize any of that parking for Discovery Science Center like you are today on that lot?
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Okay, sorry about that. Is there any plan to offer the Discovery Science Center any of the parking spaces when you're at full capacity? Because I know today they're using your parking lot
Sure.
for some of their overflow parking. So when you're built out, are they cut off and now they have to utilize their own space, or is there some kind of agreement you guys are planning on?
On the Cube's rocket lot, where there's the space shuttle, they have plans to build a 3 or 4 story parking garage to serve their needs. We intend to give them some sort of contribution to that.
Please. Would you allow the applicant to speak, please? Okay. Thank you.
And the second question just is, this is 100% apartment rentals?
It is today, but it's built to condo specs. It could be converted at some time.
Thank you.
Any other questions of the applicant at this time? One question I do have is that when we talk about the Cube and you're talking not the parking, my understanding is that financially that's something that they cannot achieve at this point in time in the near term. So how does one expect that that's going to be taken care of with this project?
It's my understanding the board is well aware of this issue. They're fundraising for it, and they're confident. Keep in mind, if we're fortunate enough to have the project approved, this is late at the end of this year. Construction documents take about a year. The construction takes about 2 years. So we're 3 years and 3 months out. They're very aware of the time frame, and we're in constant communication. They do have a small fund already. I think they need $3.5 million remaining to finish the fundraising to construct it.
Okay. No other questions of the applicant? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, at this time, we're going to open up for public comment. And as I said, what we're doing is if you filled out a yellow speaker card, you have a number on there. I'm going to ask that the first 5 numbers, 1 through 5, if you'll come up and line up along the wall here, and you'll have 2 minutes to speak. So whoever's 1 through 5, please come up. Okay, when I call your number, please come up to the podium. You'll have 2 minutes. Please identify who you are and where you live so that the court stenographer can hear, and she'll confirm whether or not she's heard your name when you call it out, okay? So, number 1. Yes.
Hello, my name is Janelle Johnson. I live in Park Santiago, and I've lived there for over 20 years. We've spent a lot of money fixing up our house. We have a lot of traffic in our neighborhood. Where are these kids going to go to school? How are they going to get into our neighborhood to get the kids to school if those people are foolish enough to use our school? It's a terrible school. So then they're going to have to commute somewhere to take their kids to school, whether it's our neighborhood or somewhere else. In addition, although the project looks extremely nice, there is not enough parking. If you're looking at that, I'm assuming that the studios are going to probably rent for $1,800 to $2,000 a month. That's going to be at least 2 people with 2 cars. Very few people are going to take the bus. People live where they live, and then they work where they work, and you can't always coordinate the two. There's already a stoplight at Edgewood. There's a stoplight at Walkie Way. There's a stoplight at Memory Lane. There's a stoplight halfway between Memory Lane and La Vida. There's another one at La Vida, and it goes on and on and on. Traffic does not move through Main Street. And if you're going to add this many cars, nobody's going to be moving anywhere. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Janelle. Number 2, and again, if you would, please, we want to get through this night. We have probably about 70 cards to go through. So we're going to have applause and everything else in between. It's going to take a long time. So please let us just at least go through the meeting.
Hi, my name's Dave Pocket. I live on at 2349 North Spurgeon. I've had the privilege of living there for 20 years, raising my family there. I understand the not in my backyard mentality, but I do know that it's the responsibility of the city to have the zoning, planning, and the whole reason you have the zoning codes is to have a buffer between the lowest density and now something's proposed to be the highest density, I believe, in Orange County, and just 42 feet away, which seems ridiculous. I've worked in single-family development for 40 years, since I was 18 years old, so I've been on both sides of these issues. However, I've never once been in a place where they have changed the zoning of a piece of property to accommodate what's happen here. I think it's going to be too dense. I don't think there's any argument that you can make that it's going to be not impacting the community. There's no way that could happen. And to propose that the existing high-rise building, which isn't that much of a high-rise, hasn't impacted the neighborhood. There's also this project, the park, the creek, a parking lot, and then you get to that building. It's not 42 feet away. So I think it's the responsibility of the city to not change this amendment. I oppose the zoning change. Thank you.
Thank you, Dick.
Good evening, Commissioners, and God bless you guys. You got a big job on your hands, not just for us, but for others too. Thank you for listening to us. The state of California mandates that...
Excuse me, could you identify who you are, where you're located?
But that takes a part of my 2 minutes.
That's exactly correct.
Okay, just kidding. My name is Billy Lee. I reside at 2502 Oakmont Avenue in Santa Ana. I've been living there for 42 years. Proudly living in Santiago Park community for 42 years.
Thank you.
Did you steal part of my 2 minutes on that one?
I took a second off your 2 minutes.
Oh, okay.
But that's okay.
The state of California has mandated that more cities build more residents, more homes for people. That's just deficient. Well, I seriously doubt that if the decision makers or the bureaucracy that mandated this home building or this development thing would ever produce the mayhem, the frustration, the despair, and the emotional upset that has been generated by the project that you heard just earlier this evening. For over 100 years, Santiago Park community has been a very dignified and a very fine community to live in. Nice homes, high-end homes, beautiful high-end, really beautiful homes, medium-sized and so forth. The dignity of Santiago Park community does not warrant such a thing as these guys are perpetrating. It did not intend to create such an environment to our quiet housing community that would embarrass you decision makers if you say, yeah, we're going to let you guys do this. Imagine going out of your home in your backyard and you go to the back of your fence and you look over, and here is this magnificent monolith, 8-story monolith of concrete or brick or something, and it used to not be there. It used to have the quiet, privacy, wonderful environment that you had, but now it's gone because of what I just said. Other neighboring cities, they have the same mandate that we have in Santa Ana. Newport, Irvine, Orange, and others have said, no, we will not allow these kinds of buildings to take place in these kinds of sites. Please listen to that and make your decision based upon that. The developer, they are deceitful. We've proven over and over again. I don't have much time, so I'm not going to go into it tonight. But they're very deceitful, and they are perpetrating deceit all the time. They call themselves our neighbors. They are not our neighbors. They will never be our neighbors because they conduct themselves outside of the realm of a neighbor. Lawsuits will... Am I?
You're out of time, Billy.
Oh, come on.
I know you could go on, but seriously, you get 2 minutes.
Okay.
Put your clothes
One last statement.
Put your clothes together.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm not there yet? Now I am because I talked. Let me see my notes here. Okay, 2525, now not any longer the Magnolia Project. It is the work of Satan. I'm not here to preach. I'm not here to preach a sermon. I'm not here to preach a sermon, but that is the work of Satan and complete darkness. And to trade it off for the tranquility that we have enjoyed for 100 years, it makes no sense. I hope one of you guys will buy a home in there and realize what I'm saying. God bless you. Please make a decision that's smart for us. Okay.
Number 4. And can we have 6 through 10 on the side, please?
Hello, my name is Lewis Wood.
I'm sorry, your name?
Lewis Wood.
Lewis, okay. Thank you.
I live in the neighborhood. My wife and I live in the neighborhood since 1992. We've been in Santa Ana since 1980 and lived over on the east side before. We love our city, and we look forward to its success for decades to come. My wife and I support 2525 development and the rezoning. We believe that the city will make a considered decision and take into account the whole of the city of Santa Ana, and believe that the project is a benefit to the whole of the city, not just one part of it. Our neighboring cities are growing in a typical fashion and building typically similar kind of units. And I think there's a competition for those resources and that economic gain that we can have for this city as well. We believe the city understands the competition and knows how best to leverage the resources we have in order for the city to grow and meet its needs. Zoning of cities was never meant to be vehicles to prevent changes for success for all. Zoning requirements ought to be open to change when the needs of most municipalities and economies demand such. We believe that the property at 2525 North Main Street and its proposed development makes sense for the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Louis. Number 5.
Hello, my name is Thomas Cartney, and I am an 18-year resident of Park Santiago. I have had the pleasure of owning 2 homes. When my partner and I discovered the neighborhood, we were very familiar with Floral Park, and we were shopping for a home there, looked across the freeway and saw the tall palm trees that defined Edgewood Road, and we said there has to be something good that's over there. Let's go check it out. And when we did, we found the type of community that I grew up in a small town back east. Tree-lined streets, beautiful homes. It's a combination, of course, of unique homes and semi-tract homes and tract homes, but the diversity of the neighborhood is absolutely fantastic. And I do believe what is more important is the feel of the community, of the neighborhood itself. People are friendly. It's a very, very now ethnically diverse neighborhood. Young families have moved into a lot of the older homes. There's a lot of improvement going on. So my concern with regard to the development is that I am a pro-development person. I worked for many years in the home building industry also, and however, I, like the gentleman before me, I'm just gobsmacked at how dense this development is. This is the densest apartment complex in the county, and it is being sited right up against 27-foot tall single-family home zoning. Also of interest is I did notice in Selena's presentation of the structure that she had mentioned that 65-foot. There seems to be a lot of questions with regard to the height of this structure. And from looking at the plans and the renderings that are at the table here, most of the building is at over 72 feet in height. Yes, it has staggered down toward the neighborhood, but those 72 feet do not include the amenity package that's on the roof of the 8-story above-ground parking lot. So I just wanted to point that out, and also that I noticed in the rezoning that a good bit of Broadway is included in this. So I'm just trying to imagine how our neighbors in Floral Park are going to feel about similar dense 8-story structures replacing usable office space where people work in this city for this type of development. Thank you.
Thank you, Thomas. Number 6.
Hi, I'm Patricia Coleman, and I live at 2525 Santiago. Sometimes a developer can just ask too much, and I see setbacks squidged to the edges. I see height, and what I see is that they want a little bit of parkland. They want a little bit of our access to our neighborhood. They want some parking. They want to remove some jobs. And they want to take our views because I used to be able to see the Disneyland fireworks, but I wouldn't be able to. You know, they get to see it now. Also, they take the future because we have Main Street. That's our pinch point. And if you ever want to widen Main Street with their setbacks, not going to happen. And I'd like to see access to accessible spaces. What sometimes a neighbor or developer is just a bad neighbor, and they're not acknowledging us. I noticed that their context always talks about the office building, the cube, but we're the longest border of this property, the single-family homes. We are the most impacted. So I'd like to have acknowledgement. I'd like information, because I can't read those documents either. I can't read them on the city website. I don't know what any of the dimensions are. I would like to have that information. This developer is not a good neighbor, not giving it to me. And lastly, upkeep of the property. As a good neighbor, I would expect them to be demonstrating right now what kind of neighbor they would be, but there's a tree branch that's down on Edgewood. It's been down for well over a month. We've had somebody had their car stolen next door. Somebody could have been using that for hiding. It's not a safe situation at night to have that there. So I just ask you to consider what kind of neighbor this developer would be. Thank you.
Thank you. Number 7.
Hello, my name is Brian Potere. I live at 2303 Santiago. I've lived there for about 20 years. I'm not as eloquent as my predecessors. They did a great job. I think this development is going to devastate the neighborhood with parking. I chuckled when they said they'll put a covenant in the lease, an unenforceable covenant. If they were serious, they'd assign everybody a sticker, one picture from a resident, they get evicted. But I don't think they'll do that. I think it is too dense. We have a lovely neighborhood of 1,100 homes going back, built before the 1900s. Many of them have basements. It's a Midwestern feel. A lot of people say it's a little Opie and Andy Griffith neighborhood. We all know each other. You introduce a neighbor of 500 homes, 500 apartments that have 2, 3, 4 people living in it. If you look at the average density of apartments in Santa Ana, you're going to see that 2 people aren't living. He referenced apartments on First Street. You drive through the barrios through the middle of Santa Ana, and there are tons of people there. We don't need more people in our neighborhood. So I don't have a whole lot more to say. I think everyone's been saying it. You're hearing the same thing. It's too dense for our neighborhood. It's not a good neighbor to our neighborhood. And there are places that are better suited. The place on Grand, where the Food for Less is, that's been abandoned, that is a place that is much larger. It's better suited for residential. You have access to the 22. They can move there. So, I apologize for not thanking you for my time originally, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for your time, and I hope that you do the right thing. Thank you.
Number 8.
Hi, my name is Sharon Gullickson. I'm married to that man. We've lived there for 22 years, and our house was built in 1930. It's a wonderful house in a wonderful neighborhood, and we don't want any of that to change. We have owned rental properties before, crummy ones and nice ones, and it doesn't matter whether it's nice or not. People bring in more people, more animals. They sign the lease with a certain number of people, and it's always more than what they say. And that will happen again. We're not stupid. We don't believe that it's going to be what the developer is saying. I noticed that the picture, maybe because I was sitting at the back, I didn't see the balconies. If you've driven around Santa Ana, when there are balconies, there's junk on the balconies. So we'll have junk on the balconies too. Let's see. Just because, this is one point I noticed, because he was mentioning that we already have the Cube and some bigger buildings. Just because we have those, does that mean we have to continue building and building and building and building? Where will it stop? And they keep saying what is best for the neighborhood. They know what is best for the neighborhood. They know more than we do. We live there. We know we would rather have a business building than these apartments. With 77 low-income units, no. Let's see, I'm not sure what tandem parking is. Maybe they can explain that. Is it double parking? Are those people going to be able to get out? Let's see. They were mentioning that they were being nice, putting in, leaving the trees, having a setback. The window placement is going to be wherever they're putting it, and it'll be nice. That's not for us. That's for their apartments to be able to rent them. So I'm not sure why he tried to make us think that that was good for us. And then they hope that people won't go down Edgewood. They're not going to be able to do that. That's just nonsense. And we're smart enough. I'm guessing everybody in here is smart enough to know that that's not going to happen. And you are too. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. Number 9, and can we have numbers 11 through 15 come up?
Hi, my name is Christine Danny Helvig. I live at 2536 North Valencia Street. I've lived here lived in Park Santiago since 1990. Allowing this project to go through as submitted would be a tragedy visited upon the very fabric, history, and quality of life of the citizens of Santa Ana. Park Santiago and other NSAPA neighborhoods are not against development. They are against the insanity and irresponsibility of this development. 2525 Main must be considered in conjunction with the rest of the proposed development projects on the books within 1/2 mile of the impacted North Santa Ana neighborhoods, because it is the combined impact of these projects, with a total of 4,532 new units on traffic, air pollution, and quality of life, that is critical to our understanding of the situation. We are talking about the impact of this traffic 7 days a week, not 5 days a week that you would see in a commercial office building. If we consider just the 2525 project with its 496 units, we can project a population of anywhere from 640 to 1,290 drivers dumping out directly onto Main Street every day. Assuming just 1 person per unit for the other developments, which is unrealistically low, the city will be looking at adding roughly 4,600 to 5,300 vehicles to an area already suffering from high traffic congestion. The cost of having to add lanes, etc., in the future to address this crush will be much higher than the proposed development tax windfall for the city's coffers. As we know from the construction and now planned destruction of the 5 carpool on-ramp, off-ramp traffic and safety studies do not always reflect the reality of the current or future situations. Vineyard has designed not just a high-density living space in a small area with realistically inadequate parking, but by far the highest density living space in all of Santa Ana, placed next to a single-family residential neighborhood. A neighborhood which is passionate about preserving the city's history, with its roughly 1,100 out of 1,165 homes which qualify for historical status. Vineyard Development knowingly chose to take the risk to purchase a property they knew was not yet zoned for residential use, and to refer to the city's 2015 Envision Map designations as part of its logic for the purchase, while ignoring the text on that very same map, which clearly states, note, this map represents a conceptual effort and its contents are in a draft format and do not represent any formal efforts to rezone or redesignate properties shown. They need to learn how to read. And SAPA neighborhoods and the city of Santa Ana as a whole should not have to pay for poor risk-taking and inappropriate design on the part of Vineyard Development. They are not too big to fail. I encourage you to vote no on the existing plan and any zoning changes for the 2525 Main Street property. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Number 11.
I'm 12.
Okay, number 12 then.
Good evening. My name is Bill Bonnet. I live at Park Santiago. I've lived there for 14 years. I'm also a member of the executive board there. I'm their treasurer. I've been their treasurer for about 7 years. I'd like to discuss tonight that I'm also a real estate developer. My family's been in real estate development for over 30 years. We're one of the larger real estate developers in the county of Deschutes in Oregon. So this is quite a spot. But I'm not illogical, and not all development is right for our community. When we had the Sunshine meeting, we had over 400 residents opposing this development. 400. Now you guys all know, if you get more than 15 to 30 at a Sunshine meeting, you've done something. We had 400. We didn't hire a public relations firm. We're grassroots. So we got all together and we said, look, we don't mind developing this property. It's built in 1981. It's 82,000 square feet. It needs some investment. Fine. We don't want to take it to dirt. We don't want it at cotton field. We'd like an office building. We don't like getting on our freeways and our streets. You guys know how busy Maine is. You know how busy that intersection is. It's incredible. There's a lot of dangerous accidents there and some weird ingress and egress. You can't turn right on Main when you're exiting 5 North at that light. People don't understand that. They do it anyway. I do want to mention briefly, they mentioned that this is a minority problem, that not a minority ethnic community, but in total, the total amount of people are opposing it. We did a survey card and we delivered it to every single 1,175 houses in our community by hand. We got over 400 back. You guys know that's a huge number for a manual delivery. Over 97% indicated on the box that they oppose the apartment developments as proposed. So this is not a minority number. One other thing I have with me today, we did our own petitions. We didn't hire a firm. We do everything by ourselves. I have over 500 signatures. I have hundreds of individual letters that I'm going to submit tonight that are addressed to you guys to state our position. Look, we want development. We want investment, but we don't want it at this level. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bill. Number 13. Number 13. 14, okay. Will numbers 16 through 20 please come up?
Hi, my name's Dimitri and I live in Santiago Park.
Sorry, your
It's
name
Dimitri
again, sorry.
Lujan. Do you hear?
Dimitri?
Yeah, Dimitri Lujan. I live in Santiago Park. I'm sort of opposed to this, a lot opposed to this project. I've always gotten pleasure turning off of Main off of Edgewood. You can't tell there's a building there. There's pine trees, it's set back. You just drive, you know, now you're going to replace that with this huge building that's right on the curb. See, I mean, it's crazy. You cannot, these photos that he's showing you here are doctored. They're pretty good pictures of how you can see the office building. You can't. It's set back. You can't see it. You know, so now we're going to see this huge apartment building that, you know, the numbers that the people that are going to live there, I don't know if they have kids, if they can afford to stay there. Because I was told in the beginning, it's high-end apartments. They're not concerned with low-income families. It opposes the mission that you guys have of helping the youth, helping the people with the homes. They don't care. There used to be a gentleman, he was from Australia, that came up and spoke to us at the Cube, and he just pretty much said, that's it. That's the way life is. Get used to it. It was crazy. You know, now, I'm like, okay, so you work with what you got. But to see now they're saying that they want this walkie, I didn't know that was the name of it, but that's a park. They want us to give up our park, that kids go and have lunch every day from the Cube. They go down there and they use that area. Now they want to use it for entrance, you know, into their apartments. That's our property. You know, and they're working a deal out with the parks. I'm like, whoa, how's that going to happen? You know, so that Edgewood is, come on, it's a single lane street. I have to go down it and up it every day. There's no way this traffic, the main entrance was Edgewood. All these cars going in and out at one, they go to work at one time and they come home at one time. That's a lot of traffic going in and out. I don't even know how that's going to happen. With the light, it's going to be backed up. They have to get into our area. And they're going to be coming off the 5 freeway through the neighborhood any way they can to get up to their home. It's just, you know, and for them to say 1.8, come on, it's going to be more like 3 cars a family to afford that payment. I can go through things they've covered. It's not a good plan. Yeah, they're showing how they came down on the back of the units. That's a shadow. They had that thing going straight up. You couldn't even, if you have to live on that street there, that they're showing their...
Could you close on your...
Yeah. I mean, I'm not for this project at all, but I think for them to have to use Edgewood is not going to work. And neither is Main Street. They just cannot get on and off that street.
Okay, thank you, Dimitri.
Okay.
Number 15.
Hi, my name's Sue McDonald, and I've lived in Park Santiago all my life, which happens to be 62 years. And my sister's here, and she has a house on the same street I do, on French Street, and she's been there even longer, so now you know she's older than I am. But anyway, you know, it is a wonderful neighborhood, and I've spoke to you before, and I reminded you of all the things the Planning Commission has done to stop negative projects in our neighborhood. You know, you've stopped overpasses coming into our neighborhood. You closed off Santiago Bridge to protect it from cut-through traffic coming through to go down to the Santa Ana Freeway. You closed Edgewood when Main Street was being widened. It was closed for almost a year. You've really looked out for us, and I'd like the legacy of your commission and past commissions to continue to realize you have done this because we are special. We are a special neighborhood. And even the developer said it, that we are different from the rest of Santa Ana, but he wants to change us into the rest of Santa Ana and the rest of Orange County. But is it okay to have pockets that are beautiful like this, that really are, you know, a real star for Santa Ana? And I, you know, ask that you really look at this closely, and I don't think it's a good place for this project. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Number 16.
Good evening. I'm Steve Switek. I live at 802 Grovemont Street in Santa Ana, which is a cut-through street. And we've owned our property since 1976. We enjoy this little enclave of East Coast housing, as it were. The developers have put forth a wonderful plan, and it looks really great, but it's like putting lipstick on a pig. It just doesn't fit for our neighborhood. The developers have promoted the idea of their 8th floor party area, and I can just hear like having downtown Disney going till the wee hours and having that noise broadcast throughout. We already have a constant hum of traffic, which is to be expected where we live. We accept that. This is going to be quite something else, and it comes with the density of the development. Somebody's spoken about food for less, and well, why couldn't they do that? Well, we can't do that because apparently Walmart is moving in there. Now that's going to be a huge traffic generator, and we're going to have cut through generated by that. The developments that are on stream, including what the Main Place revitalization project, the Hampton Inn right across the street, the cumulative project list, all are going to have impact, and yet the EIR says that this project is going to have no significant cumulative traffic impact. I don't know if the EIR writers had occasion to pass by the 5 freeway or the 22 freeway during rush hour. Traffic is at a crawl when it moves. And we have these residents who are going to be stuck, and they're going to find a way. It's like squeezing on a balloon, and that traffic is going to go right through our neighborhood, and that's the most destructive force that we have on any nice neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Number 17.
My name is Esther Lopez, and I was born in Santa Ana. Were any of you born in Santa Ana? Do you all live in Santa Ana? Well, I was born 82 and a half years ago. So I want to remind you what Santa Ana was like then. The worst thing was, get your dog, the dog catcher's coming. And I could walk at 6 blocks to kindergarten. I could walk to 18 blocks to Lathrop and say, somebody said something about an apartment. What is that? And you know, they talk about Addington. Who is that? Emmett Raitt. He was the first person that held me at my home. I was born at home. And then who is Hector Godinez? My mailman, Manuel Quesada, my banker who approved a loan for my sewing machine. Sky Dunlap at Santa Ana. He was the advisor for the business club and the newspaper. Harry Jackson, the founder of Schools First. And then, of course, you know, I'm speaking of people who really contributed to Santa Ana. They were contributors, not developers. And then I worked at the Superior Court, and I met Judge Robert Gardner, and even the criminals said that he was a very just and respected man. Because of his decisions, he gave good thought and respected humanity. And I want our neighborhood to be respected. What was my neighborhood like way back in the day? The neighbors, the fruit, the vegetables that were shared. Oh, someone's sick, let's put another cup of soup and share it. You know, I didn't have money then, and I didn't even know I was poor. I had 1 new pair of shoes a year. And now, I live on Park Santiago. Well, believe it or not, I live on Valencia Street, and guess what? The other side of Valencia, of the freeway, is Garfield. I live on the same street where I was born, on Valencia, Garfield. And then, you know what? This is a neighborhood. This is a sharing neighborhood. You have extra tacos. You have extra enchiladas, extra fruit, vegetables. Oh, and Charlotte's chocolate peanut butter clusters. And then we always had New Year's Eve at Dick Clark's home. Now we're a little older, so we would watch the news. And at 9 o'clock in New York, it's Happy New Year, everybody. So we all wish each other Happy New Year. And by 10 o'clock, we oldsters could go home. You know, we already wished each other Happy New Year. Now, I'm telling you, this neighborhood is great. And I'm wondering, with all these new people wanting to come into this apartment, how much water is going to be used? They tell us, save your water. How many toilets? How many showers? How many laundries? You know, so anyway, and then I'm thinking of the traffic, and I'm thinking we have a bee colony in our home. Guess what happens when they go to work? All those bees go out, and that's why I envision that that'll be happening. So this is a home and this is a community, and we care and love each other. Think before you destroy this gem that is true Santa Ana, that everybody says, my spirit says, I'm home.
Thank you, Esther. Number 18.
Hello, good evening. My name is Adriana de la Rosa, and I've been a resident of Park Santiago for approximately 12 years. And I think my neighbors have pretty much said everything that is important to our side of the issue. And but I wanted to impress upon you my experience in dealing with these developers. I'm part of the NSAPA committee, and I know that you are too smart to be seduced by just mere language. The word neighbor does not apply in this conversation. These are investors who are coming in to make a buck right? So let's not use words that don't apply to the conversation. These are not people that are going to come to live there next to us. If they were, of course we'd be sitting down and wanting to meet them. Our neighbors would have already created a basket to welcome them. So let's be clear. This is an issue of imbalance of power. And we want to make sure that we are represented as a neighborhood. Now, let's also be clear about the fact that this is not an issue about Park Santiago, period. This is about Santa Ana. Now, of course, most of my neighbors, along with myself, we focus on Park Santiago because that's where we live. We know the beauty and wonderful things about our neighborhood, and that's what we focus on. But it's not about that. We are pro-development. We want our city to grow. Yes, we love those millions. We need them, okay? But what are those millions going to cost? That's the question. So for us, it's going to cost the destruction of something wonderful, which is what has been done in this neighborhood. It has been preserved. It has been preserved as a historic neighborhood. Now, my husband and I were recently fortunate enough to have our home be designated as a historic home. And literally, it was kind of a twilight zone, because on the one hand, we were being designated historic, and on the other hand, it was all of a sudden that kind of is being threatened, because now I kind of see the future of this neighborhood going down the drain, in that there's this huge, dense development that is going to change the character of the community that allows my home to be designated historic. Now, of course, the reason it's designated historic is because of the characteristics of the home itself, right? But see, along with that, with those characteristics and the designation of the home itself, you have to look at the neighborhood.
Can we wrap up and close?
Yes. So thank you so much for this opportunity, and thank you for being kind to us and for listening to us. Please don't let us get lost in the process. Thank you.
Adrian.
Good evening, Planning Commission. My name is Elizabeth Hand.
Excuse me 1 second.
Okay.
For the record, Vice Commissioner Cynthia Contreras-Leah is leaving. Okay, go ahead. Thank you.
No problem. My name is Elizabeth Hansberg. I represent an organization called People for Housing Orange County. I wrote one of those letters of support for this project, and I just have a couple of comments that I would like to make before I actually make the points. I want to ask you guys to get some perspective here. This project is not going to tear down historic homes. It's going to go on the site of a vacant office building. They're not going into the middle of the neighborhood. They're on a major thoroughfare. That street is, what, 3 lanes in each direction? I mean, we're not building, a giant apartment building in the middle of, a single family area. It's on a major thoroughfare. I'm an urban planner, and that's exactly where you want higher density development, is on the major thoroughfare. So I would just encourage you to get a little perspective. It's obvious this is a really special neighborhood and a really special community. That's obvious. But building an apartment building is not going to destroy that community. And the people that are going to live there are not represented here. They're not represented in the baby boomer single family homeowner who purchased many years ago and now can enjoy the low property taxes. I would point to the millennial person who wrote a letter of support saying, me and my wife, who have 2 master's degrees, this is the type of place where we would like to live, because that is the type of place where millennials like to live. The other thing is, the Orange County Business Council this past week issued the Orange County Business Council this past week, just issued a study that I would encourage you to look at. It shows the changing nature of retail and office. It shows that we in Orange County have an excess of office space and of retail space. A lot of this is being driven by e-commerce and people telecommuting. So the reason that office building is vacant is because we have too much office space. This report details all the places in Orange County that are ripe for redevelopment, and the Business Council, one of the recommendations is to replace it with housing, because California does have a housing shortage, and that is, Orange County is included in that. And one of the reasons that we have a housing shortage is because when developers want to build, the neighborhood comes out in opposition. So just please consider all those factors. Thank you.
Thank you. Number 20. 20, all right. 20, 21. Okay, please. 20, number 20 through 25. Okay, so 21.
Hello, my name is Deng, and I live in 2614 West Pomona Street. I just moved back here from Auckland in the Bay, and I see a lot of things that we can change. First thing I want to say that I in support of this housing development, but I do not support the density of it. Because I do believe that there's a change in the housing side. People like me now, we prefer living alone, single family, single unit, 900 square feet, not that big of an apartment. That's one of the things I want to add on. But the thing is, not everything inside now is about Park San Diego. We need the money here, you know. And if we keep scaling up the developer, they're not going to come in. And if they're not going to come in, there won't be no money for school, no money for road. And who's going to pay for that? The property tax people are going to pay for that? You already see the number. So what I'm trying to say here is, young people like me, we want the new place to live. I look at Santa Ana as a place that I want to grow up and grow my family. I want to change for school. You know, but how are we going to get the money? You know, people like me, we have jobs, but we cannot afford this kind of house. So we need smaller unit. We need something that can afford, something that can grow up a family here. And the thing is, if we put a bunch of sophisticated college students like me, like in this kind of unit, we're gonna create a vibrate, you know, a ripple effect throughout the school. We're gonna bring, you know, educated college kids like me, and we can afford a vine. We cannot live in Newport. You know, Santa Ana probably the cheapest place we can live in. You know, can you have it that? We want change. That's all we're asking for. And time change, people change, community change. That's all we need to do.
Thank you, Dan. Number 22.
Hi, I'm Bea Tiritili. I'm the Vice President of the Neighborhood Association, Park Santiago Neighborhood Association, and of course I do live in Park Santiago. I'm opposed to this development for many of the reasons previously stated. This is a neighborhood of historic homes. I'm not against development in general, and I think if the developer had come to us without this top-down approach, had done a bottom-up approach, and perhaps worked with us from the very beginning before they even started making plans and talked to us about what we wanted and what we desire in development, they might have gotten our support, but they didn't do that. Right now, we have thousands of apartments either recently built or in the planning stages near our neighborhood. One of them is at Main Place Mall, and they're doing a bottom-up approach. They came to us and asked us what do we want, and how can we enhance your quality of life. And that's a wonderful approach, and I only wish that this developer had done that. We are already in Santa Ana the second densest city in California, second only to San Francisco. There's other cities in California, other cities in Orange County that can accept dense development if that's what they want to do. Why do we have to, as the most dense city already in Orange County, why do we have to become even denser? I think a reasonable development, you might get our support, but we don't support a zoning change at this time, and we certainly don't support this kind of a zoning change for this type of property that's going to impact. My biggest concern is parking. I know in our single family homes, once your children start growing up, and I'm at that stage in life right now with grown children at home, every For every bedroom in your home, you're going to have at least one car, maybe 2 cars for every bedroom in your home. We're proposing up to 3 bedrooms in here, and we're proposing not even 1 parking space per bedroom of these in many of these units. It's too dense. It's not the right place for this kind of density, and I am opposed. And I hope you will support us in opposing this development. Thank you.
Thank you. Number 23.
Good evening, Dale Helvig, Park Santiago, resident there for 28 years. 84 dwelling units per acre, reduce that by half. You still are higher than any other project in Santa Ana that borders residential living. We're trying to make a push to get these buffer zones reestablished in Santa Ana, and at the same time we're putting this in, which doesn't establish a buffer zone. I wish that the Vineyard Development presentation would have actually read a little bit of the EIR prior to their presentation, because a lot of the numbers that they quoted on traffic and flow and everything else are contradictory to the EIR. They say that the building's obsolete. The EIR says it's a viable, usable building. So I don't understand why they keep on contradicting themselves time and time again when they make a presentation. They're doing it to influence you guys in making a decision in their favor. So please, please read the EIR, look at what it says, evaluate it against what they're saying, and you'll see the inconsistencies that are being placed in front of you. They also don't talk about the 100-year-old trees that are bordering Edgewood. They didn't tell you that they're going to have to cut some of those down in order to get access to the property. Retail space, not an option for the professional use. 500 new units are going, 5,000 new units are going in according to the EIR in the area that they evaluated. We don't need their 496 right there. They could cut it down tremendously. The Cube letter that they reference, you know, they essentially had those guys, you know, the Cube had no choice. They're getting free parking from those people. So what else are they going to say except, yeah, we support it? Condo specs, they're building it to condo specs, but will they put in meters and everything else for everybody to do that later on, or is that just condo specs on the walls? Main place transformation. If office space is obsolete, then why does a main place transformation project want to put in 1.4 million square feet of office space? I don't understand that either, so thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Number 24.
Good evening, Planning Commissioners. Thank you for your time and for your service to our city. I'm Diane Fradkin, and I'm a 26-year resident of Park Santiago. There's a couple of comments I want to make. First, on the rezoning. First off, I'm opposed to the rezoning. I think the 500-unit project is just too dense and too intense for that location, first and foremost. So that is the reason I'm opposed to the rezoning. Just as Dale mentioned, there's some discrepancies in the need for office space. The previous lady said that we needed more office, we need more jobs, we need more office space. He referenced the Santa Ana Mall main place, embracing the entitled office space there. So to say that there's not a need for an office space at 2525 North Main, it just seems very inconsistent. That being said, I understand that you will make a decision to put some new use in here, whether it continues to be office space or multifamily. If it does remain to be multifamily, the developer needs to work with the community to be more compatible and seamless and more of a spirit of cooperation. That being said, I think that Planning Commission should direct staff and the developer to redesign the project, listen to the community, the needs that we specifically are asking for, reduce density, probably something that's, you know, less than 30 units to the acre. The building size needs to be something along 2 to 3 stories, not higher than that. That's more compatible with the single-family residence. It would also be better to have a greater setback on Edgewood that's more than 15 feet. I mean, that's just not enough of a setback. And the architecture. We are a historic neighborhood, and I would like to see some type of perhaps Spanish Monterey style architecture that would help embrace the historic neighborhood and be more compatible, and not the blocky modern design that's currently proposed. And I will gladly present more detailed comments about the draft DIR, written comments to you, but I appreciate your time, and I hope that you will listen to the neighbors and help make us a better neighborhood and a better development at that corner. Thank you.
Number 25, and can we have 26 through 30 come up, please?
Mr. Chairman, my name is Bill Sorenstein. I live on Fairmont Avenue in Park Santiago. I've lived there for about 25 years, graduate of Santa Ana High School in 1972, moved here to Santa Ana in 1963. One of the things that I don't understand is why the city is talking about essentially bailing out a developer for making a bad decision in terms of buying a property that was not zoned for this purpose, and then proposing the highest density housing that we could be seeing in this kind of an area, which is not appropriate given the fact that we have single-family houses, and now we're going to have essentially a 100-foot structure that's going to be overlooking that entire neighborhood. The sounds, the lights are all just going to be diffused over that area, and I think it's going to affect all the residents very negatively for the rest of the time that we're going to be living in the neighborhood. The idea that that we hope that the folks don't drive down Edgewood. Hope is not a plan, so I don't think that that's even realistic to even, you know, the fact that they mention that as putting it as a covenant in the lease is beyond ridiculous. It's window dressing, and it's poor window dressing. So thank you very much for your time, and I hope that you vote against it.
Thank you, Bill. 26, 27, 28.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, my name is Steve Gorgoni. I'm a recent addition to the beautiful community of Park Santiago. And I want to first thank you for this opportunity to make a comment, and I want to tell you that I truly appreciate all that you do for us. Now, I know the city has a lot of important issues to address, and lack of adequate funds is definitely one of them. I realize this may seem like a good solution to that problem, but it creates other very serious problems, as you've heard a lot of my other neighbors have brought up. Money can't be the only drive in city planning, and I'm sure you would agree with me, and any type of development that's going to take place in Santa Ana. Now, I'm not entirely against developments. I teach at Santa Ana High School, and I do also want more students enrolled in the school system. So again, development is good. The main problem with 2525 North Main Street is where this project is being planned. As we've heard, this location is just not an ideal place with its density. It's simply too large, and it's too close to our neighborhoods. Comparing the size of this project to other buildings on Main Street is also misleading. We need to compare this project to the neighborhood, the size of the buildings that it's actually a part of. The density of 496 units is simply going to overload the surrounding area. Park Santiago and the surrounding area already has traffic issues. The majority of us in Park Santiago are against this project and want to make sure that any development that happens this close to the neighborhood will only add to its beauty, not take away from it and congest it with traffic. When my wife and I were looking for homes in the area, we simply fell in love with Park Santiago. There's simply nothing like it around, and it must be protected. It's an oasis in a desert of cement. I urge you all to make the correct decision for responsible planning. Thank you again for your time and understanding.
Number 29? Okay.
Hi, I'm Courtney Conlog. I have been born and raised Santa Ana, and I've been a fond owner of a house for 4 years in Park Santiago. The reason I came here today is I travel the world a lot of the year, and I heard about the density of these apartments, and it really threw me off because when I was this little girl riding my bike through Floral Park and into Park Santiago, I always dreamed of living in a beautiful home like Park Santiago. And so when I stand here in front of you guys today, I'm really opposed to these apartments being built. I'm not opposed to the evolution of Santa Ana. I love everything you guys are trying to do to evolve this city, and I love some of the growth you guys have created. However, I think this development is going to hurt a beautiful gem. And someone said a millennial. I am a millennial, and I've been a house owner for 4 years now. I'm going on 26, and I look at these beautiful homeowners, and there's a lot of sadness. There's individuals that have lived in this neighborhood for 60-some years, and I've been very fond to live there, but it's going sad to me seeing this increase of traffic and possibly this project like this one going to ruin the future of Park Santiago. So I just really want you guys to listen to this community because I think they're being very loud and clear on their voice. And yeah, thank you so much for listening to everyone tonight. I know it's quite a lot to hear, and I think the message has been said quite a bit. Thank you.
Thank you. Number 30. Can we have 31 through 35, please line up?
Good evening, Commission. My name is Giles Candy. I live on Oakmont Avenue in Park Santiago. Fairly new resident, only about 6 years. The parcel I'd like to see developed. It should be developed constructively for the city and within a plan, which is something you have some say over. There's lots of ins and outs, but basically I see it coming down to a question of appropriateness and context with the neighborhood. You recognize the neighborhood as a historic neighborhood. I'm very lucky. I live in a historically recognized house. I understand that and I value it. And your recognition of that values it too. But the development that you would vote on should be consistent, or vote affirmatively on, should be consistent with this neighborhood. And it comes more or less down to a number. Density. We've heard it a lot, but what does that mean? In the context of Park Santiago, it means in the tracts around the proposed development, it means around 2,600 people per square mile. It's low density, single family housing. We're very lucky, but that's what it is, and that's a neighborhood that's been established over just over a century. The new development is a density of well over 100,000, probably close to 120 or 130,000 people per square mile. As you consider your vote on this, that is what you're considering, to impose 130,000 people per square mile into, not close to, not adjacent to, but into a neighborhood with the tracks around, very luckily, but with a density of 2,600 people per square mile. That's a huge contrast. That, I believe, is boiled down what you will be deciding. Please decide to find a more appropriate development. I'd like it to be developed, but constructively for all of us. Thank you for your time.
31.
Good evening. My name is Mike Planamura, and I live at 2501 Oakmont Avenue. My wife and I moved to Park Santiago over 14 years ago. And like a gentleman earlier said, we both grew up on the East Coast. We knew of Park Santiago through some friends. And when we went there, we fell in love with the neighborhood. It looked just like the way we grew up, and had a good family. Since living there, like someone else said, the people are so friendly. We know our neighbors. We get together. I've lived in apartments before. I'm sure most of us have. Apartment dwellers are transitory. They don't contribute that much to the community. They're not going to be coming to our backyard parties or wine events and stuff that we have along. They're going to be living there, and then they're going to go off to work. As other people mentioned, within a half-mile radius, you get 2700 North Main Street with 247 units, Prisma at 182 units, 1110 with 260 units, 999 Town and Country 262 units, Town and Country Apartments with 727 units. That's almost 1,700 units. Plus, you have some already existing ones like Windsor Luxury Apartments, which I think have probably about 150, 180 units, all within a half-mile radius. And then you're talking about Main Place Mall and putting 1,900 units there. This area is developed as professional. What we need in Santa Ana for the children is professional jobs, not waiters and waitresses and cashiers. We need professional career jobs. And this unit right now, the parcel is zoned for professional. We want people to look at professional and develop it as a professional site so we can get some careers for our children. I want to thank you for the time that you have tonight, and please think about our children and your mission statement about the high quality of life for our residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Good evening. I'm Kathy Moorhead. I live on Valencia Street. I've lived in Park Santiago for over 35 years. And I'm here to let you know that I, too, oppose this project. I'm sure that it was the heritage and the charm of the neighborhood in the first place that made the Olgonics want to buy the property and develop it. And I don't think that anything that they've done to date has shown any respect for the heritage of this neighborhood. I think that the project needs to be completely reconsidered. It needs to be reimagined. I don't feel that the choices that were put forth in the EIR are enough of a variety. It's sort of black, white, or gray. I think we need some more choices. I think the whole thing needs to be rethought. And then I am not great at math, but I think I have this right. If this project gets built, and let's say it adds 15 minutes to everyone's in and out trip in the neighborhood, just the neighborhood. I'm not talking about the people who commute from Orange on Main Street. It adds 15 minutes. That's a half an hour a day. That makes 187 hours a year, or 7 days of our lives that we will not get back with our family, our time, ever, because of the decision of one person who wants to build that. That's it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Kathy. Okay, 33.
Ladies and gentlemen of the Planning Commission, my name is Juan Hernandez. My wife and I have lived on Park Lane for 20 years now, and we love the neighborhood. It's a neighborhood. It was designed originally for that neighborly concept that's there now. Very few places in Santa Ana have that. You bring this project in, it's going to destroy that. I'm not going to say anything like that anybody else has already said. The only thing that I'm telling you guys is pick a little bit of time out of your day, whether it's in the morning or in the afternoons. Stand on Edgewood and Main and see the traffic. See how bad it gets there. And then as you're standing there in the corner, then look behind you and imagine that structure that's going to go up there. And then let me know what you think about that. Every single day, there's going to be literally hundreds and hundreds of additional cars going in and out of that neighborhood. Would you like that in your backyard? Thank you.
Thank you. Number 34.
Good evening. My name is Chris Schmidt. Before I talk about this project, I'd just like to make an observation about developments in our city. There is an empty lot at First and Harbor that's been empty for 8 years, and the community has asked for something. The developer is Primor. They proposed a single-story building with 6 restaurants and a drive-through, and the city said, no, you need to build 2 stories and 3 stories because it's part of the Harbor Boulevard corridor. I was at the meeting where the neighborhood said, no, we want this. There's no parking in that lot. And here we are with the person talking about a 5-story building. And it seems to be a disconnect between what the community wants and what the city thinks best. So getting back to this project, Park Santiago, I have a question. Is it really Walkie Way, or is that only Walkie Way into the Discovery Science Museum? Because if you look at the street, if you're going northbound, it says Park Santiago. My understanding is the Park Department applied for 2 land and water conservation grants for Park Santiago to improve it. My understanding is a map would have to be drawn encompassing the whole property. It's called a 6F3. I think it's in your package. This would protect the entire park property in perpetuity. Any changes would have to go before the state of California and the federal government for approval. I don't know if anybody's been to Park Santiago lately, but it needs a lot of help. I'm concerned that this development and using that access may jeopardize the city getting these grants and improving the park. I don't see anybody from Parks and Recs here, so hopefully somebody can speak about that. The other thing is that we talk about densities, second densest city in the state of California. How about the other additional calls for service to the fire department, Santa Ana Police Department? We're currently down like 50, 60 budgeted officers. When I place a call for service, it takes an hour. We keep adding more and more. I know change is difficult, but we're not considering the resources that these developments put on the existing short staff that we have. Mark, you probably know this. Will the students go to Santa Ana Unified or Tustin Unified who live in this development? Tustin Unified is really close. Last thing, if you look at the development on Harbor and 17th, you'll get an idea. It's the line. Right behind it is the Marless neighborhood. Take a look at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Number 35?
I picked up the one on the top. It said 26, so I just crossed out and put 35.
Okay. Good enough.
Thank you. Hi. You shouldn't leave. I'm really going to be good. I'm the best speaker of the night. Hi, I'm Peggy Stagel. I've been in the neighborhood 39 years in Park Santiago. We love it there. One thing we're opposed to this totally. One thing people haven't brought up tonight that I would like to point out to you guys is the parking. There is not enough parking. They're going to lie to you and say 1.82, blah, 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 blah. I have 13 nieces and nephews, millennials. They all have at least 2 cars. Some of them have 3. This is not enough parking spaces, so guess what they'll say? Go park on Edgewood. Let's just start parking up and down our streets. If there's not room there, let's go on Spurgeon. Let's go down all the other streets, French Street. Let's just start parking there. And then the Cube says we don't have enough parking. Let's go park at Park Santiago. There's lots of streets. If you go there on a Saturday, you'll see the Cube's extra parking up and down our streets already. It's not unheard of. Have you ever been to a USC game? People will walk for miles. They park in the neighborhoods and walk for miles to get to the Coliseum. This is what's going to start happening. And then the city says, well, you can get permits. Oh, it's only going to cost each neighbor $70 a year for their friends and their family to come park and to see them. This is not right. It's not fair. This is not the place for this development, mister, and I think you're lying about a lot of your stuff. So please think about the parking. Thank you.
Thank you, Peggy. Is there anybody else at this point in time that would like to speak on this item? Okay, please come up here. Please fill out a card. No, that's for the other. Okay, you filled yours out first, so you get to come first. All right.
Good evening, and thanks for listening to us. I wish that everybody else was here. I'm sorry, my name is Lisa Gans, and I'm a resident of Park Santiago. My husband and I have lived there for 17 years. One of the things that I want to talk about today is the EIR, and that is the purpose of this meeting today.
If you're going to talk to the EIR, we have another session that we're going to have after this to talk to the EIR.
All right, I'll stop that then. So I'm here today to strongly urge the Planning Commission to support the analysis affirming the no project, no build alternative as the superior alternative. I read the report, and although I agree with the conclusions, I don't think the report went far enough in a few areas, especially the cumulative impacts.
Excuse me, I'm sorry, but I've got to stop you, Lisa. We're going to have a conversation, and we're going to have public speaking for the EIR.
Okay.
So if you want to speak on the work study that we just had.
Okay, I got you. Then what? Okay, I got you. Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Sabrina Wilson, and I actually live on the corner of Spurgeon and Edgewood. I just want to speak to a couple of things that Jeremy and his brother discussed today. You didn't come to my house and offer me $3 million to sign something either, though. Maybe. They mentioned Discovery Cube being supporters of their building. No kids are going to live in that apartment complex. It's filled with one-bedrooms and studios. Most of those people are going to be single. And guess what? They have a lot of friends who want to come over and use those amenities. That means they're going to be parking in front of my house. What does the fire marshal say about giving everybody one of those key fobs in our neighborhood? That's 1,100 homes that are going to be able to use the pool and the yoga studio and whatever else in there. Cynthia, who was up here earlier talking about we need more housing, there are 3 empty buildings within half a mile of us. They're not even half full. So there's plenty of housing available in our area. And they want to say we want to live where we work. There aren't enough buildings right around us for us to have our office buildings in. So we can't live where we work. And anyone working at Main Place Mall most likely isn't able to afford to live in that building. So thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Michelle. I'm Secretary for Park Santiago Neighborhood Association. I've lived there for about 6 years, and we fought hard. I've been working hard to oppose this project. We've been working with all the residents. Time and time again, we hear that how much people do not want this built there. Basically, I've grown up in Orange County my whole life. I lived in the same house in Westminster for 25 years, and I knew about Park Santiago since I was little. I never thought I would be able to afford to live there, and I got married, met somebody wonderful, and we have a beautiful house there. And I just feel really lucky to be there, and destroying that entrance to Park Santiago from Edgewood has always been in my thoughts since I was little. I've known it, I've seen it time and time again, and I know in my heart that destroying that gem there is going to make a big impact in people's lives and the quality of Santa Ana. I never thought I would live in Santa Ana. I thought I was going to live in Irvine, actually. You know, I thought I was going to be a doctor and all that stuff, but I'm a physician assistant. I love my job. I work hard, and Santa Ana has changed a lot since 1982, and it's become better because of you guys. But you guys have looked forward. You guys have thought, what's great for this city, and Floral Park has remained sacred, and it's been, you know, there's not a lot of buildings around it, but unfortunately you guys are thinking of destroying Park Santiago. So I just want you guys to remember that, and hopefully you guys will consider preserving Park Santiago. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Okay. Is there anyone else at this?
Yes, sir.
Oh, Rob, come on.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the Commission. I'm Rob Richardson, and I've been a resident of Santa Ana since 1961, and it took me 40 years to move north of 17th Street. It took me a long time. I've lived all over this town in all different kinds of areas. And the Park Santiago neighborhood is a special neighborhood. All of our neighborhoods are special, and I think what the Commission has to do is make decisions that are in the interests of the people that live in this town. That must come first. And I think that is the important thing. It doesn't matter if it's Park Santiago or if it's a South Coast neighborhood or Washington Square, wherever else it is. The most weight needs to be given to the folks who live in this community today. They don't have choices about where they can go. They have spent everything they have to be in this neighborhood or in our neighborhoods, and don't have that flexibility to just jump up and move. The situation with this project, to me, feels a little bit like putting 100 pounds of taters in a 10-pound bag. It's too much, it's too dense, it's not creative, it doesn't look anything different than one of the projects up in the Platinum Triangle over in Anaheim, or the projects that are along Jamboree Road down in Irvine. We don't want to be like those places. And this is why I would urge the Commission to take its time, to be reflective on this, err on the side of the interests of the people that live in this community and protect their interests. The track record, unfortunately, with big projects like this in our town has not been good. And we know that, and to deny that that is the case is to really laugh in the face of reality. This is what's happened. And so we have here an incredibly dense project that is set right next to a residential neighborhood that is a successful neighborhood. And I think as other people have spoken here tonight, and they've mentioned all of the thousands of units that are planned in the immediate vicinity, I think that we look at this project and I think we see this as precedent setting for the rest of the town. Because if you and the council ultimately force this down people's throats in this way, then, you know, bar the door. Everything is possible. It won't matter. What I can say to you is that in the 50-plus years that I've been around Santa Ana, and I've been involved for a lot of them, and I've sat in this chamber and I've voted for a lot of different development projects, some of which I may regret. Don't let us repeat that here with another project that doesn't make sense, that is too much and is too big for this location. So I encourage you to be thoughtful, take your time, and reflect on what was heard here. I would just say this, that I've been engaged in a lot of activities over the last 35 years in community activities, political activities, and all the rest in Santa Ana. I have never seen the depth of opposition to a project that I've seen, the opposition to this project that is before you tonight. So please keep that in mind, and I thank you.
Okay, is there anyone else at this point in time that would like to have make public comments? Hearing none, we'll close the public comments for this work study. I thank you on behalf of the Commission for your comments. And with that, we're going to move to the EIR and the business.
I'm sorry, I need a break. I'm so sorry.
Okay.
I need a break. Is that possible for me to have a break?
Go. I'll sing. Okay.
I'll be right back.
You better be back because you haven't heard me sing. Yeah, we'll take a 5-minute recess.
I wanted to speak, but I didn't bring my notes.
If you need validation, please come up to the front. Thank you.
Can we get everybody to be seated, please? Can we get everybody in their seats? Our stenographer is back.
Decorum.
Could you please
Decorum,
be
let's get
seated?
started.
Okay. Before we go on to our business item, it was brought to attention by staff regarding comments coming from the commission at this point in time based on the presentation and such. I've polled the commissioners, and at this point in time, there are no comments. Okay. What I just was saying is that it was brought to the attention by the planning department if the commissioners wanted to make a comment relative to the work study presentation. I polled the commissioners, and we want to move on, so there are no comments at this time. So we're going to move on to the business calendar. No comments from the commissioners at this point in time.
So do we get to hear what your results are?
This was a work. Let me just clarify one thing. What we just went through is a work study. There's no vote. There's no action taken by the commission at this point in time. It's merely a disclosure of the project to the commissioners, and we will have another meeting in another about 2 months, roughly, where we will meet to discuss and actually vote on this project at that time. So this was strictly a work study program, a work study to give us an overview of the project and give us the ability to get feedback from you in the community and also from staff and the developer. So we'll move on to the business calendar, and now we're going to talk about item number 1, draft environmental impact report number 2018-01 for the proposed project Magnolia at the Park, located at 2525 North Main Street. Do any of the commissioners need to disclose anything at this point in time? Eric, all ready?
Yes, I'd like to disclose that on Friday, August 24th, I met with the developer, Ryan Agolnik, and his consultant, Pam Cepetto. We talked about the scale of the project, the ingress and egress, the site mix. What I mean by that is the unit mix, studio versus 3-bedroom, and certain portions of the EIR.
Lynette Moreno?
I had a conversation last week with Pam Cepetto and the Olganiks by telephone. I had a conversation with Pam Cepetto and the Olganiks last week. I'll have to look at my calendar for the exact date, so I'll fill out the form. It's just an overview by telephone of the project.
Okay. Cam Nguyen?
Last week on Tuesday, I have visited the site, viewed the area, and also I have met with Pam Cepetto and Ryan and Jeremy Olganick about the project.
Okay, and Mark McLaughlin, I had text messages and a call with Pam Cepetto, but we did not meet. She just exchanged text messages to set up a meeting. Okay. Selena, please present.
Thank you, Chair McLaughlin, members of the Planning Commission. Tonight I'm going to provide a brief overview of the CEQA process, and we're not going to go into details of each aspect of the environmental impact report. What we're here tonight to do is to receive public comments on the draft EIR. Those comments that are received will be responded to as part of the record for the draft EIR. This is not a requirement to have this meeting, but we do want to hear from the public, and responses will be provided. So just a general overview of the CEQA process. There are several steps. The initial study has been completed, the scoping meeting was conducted, and staff, with the help of a consultant, has analyzed and produced technical studies in regards to the proposed project. The project that is analyzed in the EIR is what was previously presented during the work study. That would be a worst case scenario for the development. The number of units will not be going higher. There may be slight modifications to the plans, but nothing that would create any new impacts. If that were the case, then a new EIR would be produced. So we're currently in the 45-day public review period. The draft EIR was released on August 7th, and the public review period will conclude on September 20th. After that, staff will review the comments received and do any new analysis or responses as necessary, and then those responses will be taken and put into the final EIR, which will be in front of the Planning Commission and City Council for final consideration. The purpose of an EIR is an informational document to inform decision makers, such as the Planning Commission and City Council, of any significant impacts of a project. It will identify ways to mitigate impacts where possible and also analyze alternatives. The draft EIR analyzes aspects that are a result of both the construction phase and the operations of the 96 multifamily units or occupancy for this project. And again, the final EIR will be before you with the entitlements at a future public hearing. There are no decisions on the draft EIR tonight or the project. The draft EIR analyzed 14 different environmental topics, and a series of technical studies were produced to support that analysis and are included in the appendix. Both are available for public review. The alternatives analyzed within the draft EIR is a no project, no build alternative. This would be reoccupancy of the existing office building at the site. The second alternative is a reduced project alternative, which is a 30% reduction in the number of units, which would be 347 units, increased setbacks on the east to 90 feet, and tiered building heights. And the third alternative is a build-out under the existing professional zoning, which would result in an approximately 400 or 380 square foot 1,000 office building, 3 stories in height. In regards to those environmental topics, there were mitigation measures applied for aesthetics, which would preserve the trees on the east side of the development. Air quality in regards to the construction equipment being used to meet EPA standards. For biology, to conduct a survey of nesting birds prior to any grading or construction. For hazards, to submit a soils management plan prior to issuance of any grading permits. For noise, for upgraded windows and doors for the residential units along Main Street. In addition, no large construction equipment, trucks, bulldozers, or staging within 50 feet of the eastern property line. And to install temporary noise barriers or sound blankets along the eastern boundary. For tribal and cultural resources, mitigation would include training for construction crews for Native American sensitivity in case there were any artifacts found on site. In regards to the next steps for the project, written comments can be submitted to me by September 20th at 5 p.m. The city is going to review all comments that are received and include that in the response to comments. And later, depending on the timing of that, later this fall or early next year, it will be back before the Planning Commission with the entitlements for recommendation to the City Council. And then the final public hearing will be at the City Council meeting. And that concludes staff's presentations tonight. I will leave a list of the environmental topics that can be of topic to be commented on. If each speaker could state which category they're commenting on along with their comment, that would be helpful in responding.
Okay. Thank you, Celine. Does the commission have any questions of staff?
Thank you.
Would the applicant at this point in time like to make a comment relative to the EIR? Applicant is left. You're in the back. Okay. All right. Madam Secretary, have we received any written communication on this item?
Not in specific to this item, to the work study item, and those were distributed.
Okay. We will move on to public comments. Let me just also state some of the ground rules we've got here on this. Comments are pertaining to the hearing on the EIR, and they should relate to and focus on the EIR. We have the court stenographer here, and she will be taking those comments, so whatever comments you provide tonight for the EIR, they will be considered written comments received tonight. Responses to the comments, including all comments tonight hearing on the environmental impact, will be included in the final EIR. The commission will not be making any decision about the project at tonight's public hearing. If you would like to speak, please fill out a green card, and you have 2 minutes. And we're going to do the same thing. We're going to do the numbers. I believe we have about 12 or 13 cards that have been filled out, so we're going to start with 1 through 5, and if you could line up here on the side, I'd appreciate that. You're number 1, Dale?
Number 1.
Okay.
Dale Helvig, Park Santiago. Good evening again. Selena stated the purpose of the EIR is to provide public agencies and the public in general with detailed information about the effect of a proposed project like this. Without meaningful analysis of alternatives in the EIR, the courts and the public can't fulfill their roles in the CEQA process. The EIR must contain facts and analysis, not just consultants' conclusions or opinions. Substantial evidence is defined as, among other things, it's used to help determine relevance of information and reasonable inferences from the information that is fair argument that can be made to support a conclusion. Argument, speculation, unsubstantiated opinion or narrative, evidence which is clearly erroneous or inaccurate, or evidence or social or economic impacts which do not contribute to or are not caused by physical impacts on the environment does not constitute substantial evidence. Substantial evidence shall include facts, reasonable assumptions predicted upon facts, and expert opinion supported by facts. I'll skip a lot here because there's a lot that I would like to address, but a fact of alternative 3 on the EIR, build out the existing zoning alternative, states that with existing zoning requirements, they could build a 3-story high, 387,000 square foot building, which would require 1,161 parking spaces. This is the extent of the analysis. There's no plan in place. Nothing else is being provided in the EIR. There's also a fact that the building height requirements states that notwithstanding any other height provision of the chapter, all structures shall not exceed 2 stories or 25 feet in height within the rear 50% of the lot abutting the rear property line or property zoned or used for residential purposes. Therefore, their conclusion that they run of putting in this huge 3-story building on the lot is not consistent with the current zoning codes that we have in place. So again, misleading information from the developer. Thank you.
Well, just come up behind him. That's right, just come up. Your turn.
Okay, so you all know me by now. I'm Lisa Gans, and I apologize for being out of step in this process. This is my first time in being here and knowing this, so I wasn't sure what comments I could comment on at this point. So,
well, let me just clarify one thing, and that is that the list that you have in front of you up here, if you have something pertaining to that list,
I do.
And you want to address it, that's how you need to.
Yes, I read the draft EIR, all 350 pages of it, and have some comments concerning that. So I guess the first thing that I want to say is that I hope that you guys all take a look at the draft EIR, which is, the analysis does affirm the no project, no build alternative as the superior alternative. I don't think the report went far enough in a few areas, especially the cumulative impacts of all the projects recently built and or being considered on the project. Several projects were omitted from the report, including the PRISM project, the 1110 project, if I'm saying that right, and more importantly, the Transform Main Place project with 1,900 apartments and 400-room hotel. So why was that omitted? And that cumulative impact is a significant discussion in all of these, and I did not think that the analysis of the cumulative impact was sufficient in all of the different topics here. There were only one or two areas where there was significant information pertaining to the cumulative impact. The densify, pack, and stack strategy is wrong for the city. We've heard this earlier today. We're already overcrowded. Santa Ana is the highest density population and 10th in the nation, but the draft EIR states, according to the Santa Ana general plan, the city is almost fully developed. These mega apartments, they just compound the problem and are not a fit. I'll skip a few things as well. I know everybody wants to leave. The project description and the traffic and emissions analysis underestimate the realistic cumulative number of residents and vehicles that's been brought up here. Densifiers claim mega complexes bring in hip millennials who want to use mass transit, walk, or bike to work. They won't. OCTA's bus ridership has been in decline for 10 years. In fact, the CEO states they are selling a product no one wants. According to your Santa Ana General Plan Housing Report, 80% of Santa Ana residents work outside the city. Most drive alone. Most households have 2 to 3 vehicles. The project will bring more congestion to our already overcrowded streets and freeways, and it would conflict with the AQMP objectives, and as noted in the ER, would create significant irreversible effects on the traffic and emissions affecting air quality. Densifiers claim their strategy brings wealth to the city. However, the EIR found that the significant growth in employment activities and However, the EIR found less than significant growth in employment activities and less than significant stimulus to the economy. Sure, we just heard, the developers are going to throw billions of dollars that way. That's not right. Imagining that a 5-story complex with 8 levels of parking would be beneficial to the city, this is the wording, because it creates a gateway from the north and visual interest to the city, is a huge stretch and somewhat laughable. The project goes against the city's general plan urban design element goal 1 because it does not improve upon the surroundings, it does not focus on the consistency in the scale, bulk, and pattern of existing development in the historic Park Santiago neighborhood, and it will not reinforce or help establish district character, and it does not impart an overall visual impression that is pleasing to or valued by its observers. This product aesthetically does not fit with bordering neighbors, and it's not what the resident taxpayers want. So in conclusion, I respectfully request the denial of the general plan amendment, land use change, the zoning change, and the project development agreement. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Yes, again, my name is Bill Bonnet. I am a resident of Park Santiago of 14 years. As I mentioned in my previous discussions, I have a great deal of experience in real estate development, primarily office, so this part of the discussion is rather interesting to me. The argument of the applicant is that office is overdeveloped and that there's no need for it at this time. However, as we know, there was a huge partnership really with the city and Michael Hara with regard to attempting to get the Amazon headquarters 2 at the Orange County Register location. So I think that is a true fallacy. Getting back to the EIR problems we have with this, primarily is the parking. As we said, 346 units are proposed to be either studio or one bedroom. And as of right now, they are only providing one parking spot per resident. As we know, many people that have one bedrooms have their loved one living with them that's driving, husband, boyfriend, or other relative. So to provide only one resident unit for 68% of the project is just inappropriate. It may be higher than the other developments in our city, but that says more about the planning of those prior units than of what is truly appropriate. Air quality. When you put this many people right on the freeway, and as you know, many cities are saying you should not build residential within 500 feet of a major freeway artery. The west corner of the 2525 development is less than 100 feet from a major artery. The CO2 levels are quite high when you do that, and most cities are not recommending developing, especially at this density level, units that are this close to a major freeway artery. There is public health, and we worry about children's growth and overall health. Putting this high of a density right on our 5 freeway is not appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill.
My name is Mark Engel. I've lived in Park Santiago for 41 years. What I'd like to address is the water. I saw it up there a minute ago, but I don't see it now.
Well, it's under utilities and service.
Okay, at any rate, we just exited a multi-year drought, and during that time, we were told that we had to conserve and cut back approximately 20% water usage. Well, we had one good year of rain 2 years ago, excuse me, and now it's going to be unlimited building. Last year was not a very good year for rain. If we have 2 more years of less than perfect rainfall, we're going to be right back in the drought situation. Meanwhile, there's going to be 500 and some, or about 500 units. They're going to be using personal water, clothes washing, spas, pool, etc. So I think it's a little bit too premature to allow this much building when we're not sure about the weather. There was a report from the governor's office that he might consider reinstating the drought restrictions permanently. So thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Okay, there were additional cards that were taken. Is anybody else at this point in time having public comment on the EIR?
Hi, good evening. My name is Darcy Cancino, and I have been a 20-year resident of Park Santiago. My main concern, and I'm preparing a written comment letter to the draft EIR, involves traffic. As people have mentioned, the through traffic through our neighborhood has been terrible, and I think that this building and this development, due to its massive size and scale and residents, is going to only exacerbate the problem. One of your, in the general plan, you talk about implement street design features that discourage through traffic on residential streets. There's nothing in the EIR that talks about how they're going to mitigate people cutting through our neighborhood. I live on Grovemont, and I would ask that maybe you someday come and stand on the corner of Grovemont and Larchmont and watch the traffic as it goes by. People, they turn left from Larchmont onto Grovemont, and they hit the gas and they go speeding down the street. I can just imagine, as this development is completed, how much worse that's going to get as people seek to go to Stater Brothers, they'll go to the post office, they'll take their children to Tustin Unified Schools, and they'll go through our neighborhood streets, making it even worse. So I don't think that the draft EIR adequately addresses this concern, and that will be in my written comment letter, so thank you very much.
Thank you, Darcy.
Hi, I'm Patricia Coleman again, and thank you very much for staying late and listening to all of us. I was surprised when I went to the scoping meeting and I spoke with the person who was putting together the EIR. She mentioned that I shouldn't worry about the geology, that in a project of this size and density that there would be a full-scale geology report, and I didn't see it. And I just really want you to think about all the reports and make sure that they're all thorough and all as detailed as they need to be, because we're talking about a lot of people sitting on this site, and it needs to be safe, and the city needs to not have putting themselves in risk of allowing something to skate through. So just please consider what's in the report, and also consider what might be missing. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else at this time that would like to comment on the EIR report? Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing on the EIR report. I want to thank everybody for your comments, and as stated earlier, the comments that we'll receive this evening on the EIR will be considered written records, and they will be considered being received as of this evening. You also have until the 20th of September at 5 p.m. to submit any additional comments you would like to submit at this point in time with respect to the EIR and with the items that are on the screen at this time. With that, we'll close our business calendar at this time, and we'll move on to staff member comments. Do we have any comments from staff, please?
Yes. I did want to notify you that we do have 2 public meetings coming up. One will be next Wednesday and one will be on Thursday. They are, the second one, is the one on Thursday will be on the Willowick project, which is a joint project between the city of Santa Ana, in which it's located, in the city of Garden Grove, which owns it. It will be the first outreach program on that, talking about what the possible uses for that site would be. So that will be held at Goodwill Industries next week at 6 p.m. Next Wednesday will be the community meeting on the Red Oak project, which is located between 5th and 6th Streets and between French and Mintner. It is a mixed-use project with ground floor retail and residential above at the east end of downtown Santa Ana 4th Streets project. The meeting on that will be held at Latino Health Access on Wednesday at 6 p.m.
So these are both considered sunshine meetings?
Pardon me?
They're both considered sunshine meetings?
The first one is a sunshine meeting. The second one is a pre-sunshine meeting. It's that we haven't even got to the design project. It's really a bottoms-up kind of looking at asking both communities how they would like to see that project developed. So.
Okay, thank you. Any other staff comments? Hearing none, we'll go to the commission. Roman, any comments? Lynette?
None tonight.
Eric?
Just a couple. Just thank the community for coming out today to talk. We need to hear all this, and we need to consider it in our decision making. The other question I had is, and maybe this is, I might take this offline, but is there a program EIR for this, or is it just individual? If anyone knows, is just project EIR? Project EIR. Okay. All right. Thank you. That's it.
Okay. Ken?
I would like to closing the meeting today in memory of the Senator John McCain.
Thank you, Ken. We'll do that. Okay. Again, I think what Eric just said, I reiterate the fact that we appreciate everybody coming out this evening and telling us what your opinions are on the project and giving us some insight as to what the project is all about. We thank you for doing that. I know it took us a long time. This has been a marathon meeting for us at this this time, but we appreciate, again, your input. We appreciate what you've done to enlighten us at this point. I have no other comments, and with that, we'll adjourn in honor of Senator John McCain, and the meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next meeting will be September 24th.